Overnight, the International Energy Agency drew a very clear line in the sand for Australia and countries like it. If we're to have a hope of reaching net zero emissions by 2050, we'll need to move to a no-emissions electricity grid by 2035. That's just 14 years away. Australia hasn't even committed to net zero by 2050, and instead we're charging ahead with a new $600 million taxpayer-funded gas-fired power station.
There's 1,000 megawatts that's coming out of reliable power in New South Wales because the Liddell Power Station is closing down. You saw what happened here in Victoria when coal-fired power stations closed down. Electricity prices went up.
The plant's environmental impact statement says it will only run at 2% of its full capacity each year. Its main job, filling gaps in peak demand periods. But climate scientists, energy experts and some of the government's own advisors don't believe it'll have a major impact on your bill.
The Energy Minister is saying that because there will be more gas into the market, that supply will increase, that prices will drop. However, we know the cost of producing the gas has risen very highly and it's much more expensive than renewable energy.
The decision by the Morrison government to invest taxpayers' money in a gas-fired power station represents the result of 8 years of policy failure. It doesn't stack up because it's expensive power.
The task force advising the government on the Liddell Power Station closure says existing new energy projects will be more than enough to cover the 1,000 megawatts that'll be lost.
We have these huge natural resources. We should be investing more in them. The private sector wants to invest. Customers want to have clean energy. It's going to create lots of jobs and growth that the government's after, and it's going to do so without all those nasty emissions.
Battery development is still at a very early stage, and gas is an important transition fuel to support the transition of Australia's energy economy over the next 20, 30 years.
Of the millions of Aussies who do want urgent climate action, most probably don't want big electricity bills either. So what should they make of today's announcement?
Ian Dunlop is a former international oil, gas and coal executive, but he's now a passionate advocate for action on climate change, and he joins us now. Ian, if nothing else, will this new gas plant lower power prices?
No, I don't think there's any way at all, because the alternatives we now have available, the renewables with storage options, are now cheaper than both coal and gas. So this is really a completely unnecessary project.
Well, the government threatened to build this plant if the industry didn't do it themselves. Should the fact that the industry didn't bite tell us something?
Yes, absolutely, because, this is supposedly a government that relies on market forces. If the market forces don't want to actually pick up the project and do something about it, then you have to really question why we're doing it in the first place. But the big issue on this whole arena is not being discussed, and that is the question of what are we doing about the risks of climate change? And a gas project is just going to add to the risks we now face.
They are saying, though, that this would be designed only to run at 2%, so it's basically just top up when it's necessary. Does that mean that it won't necessarily be a very big emitter anyway?
If that's the case, then you have to really question, well, why are we doing this? Because the one big thing that is missing in this entire debate is the question of the real risks that we face from climate change, which is why we're investing in renewables, and the big risks are being completely ignored. Now, I mean, if you really understand those risks, we have to get our carbon emissions down as fast as possible, much faster than 2050, and it makes absolutely no sense to be building and investing in more fossil fuel capacity. We don't need any more coal, oil or gas investment.
But Ian, you would know what the government has been saying to that. We've got record levels of renewable investment in the grid. There are times where the wind doesn't blow, the rain doesn't shine. The sun doesn't shine. Sorry, I forgot the cliche. But the point is that you don't have renewables available that time, and so batteries don't cut it. That's what the Prime Minister said today. And so you just need that support mechanism sitting underneath it.
But look, I don't think that with all respect to the Prime Minister and the Energy Minister, they really understand where technology has now moved to. Battery storage will handle the problem. I mean, these guys are unfortunately about 10 years behind the times. And what they're doing is exposing the Australian community.
From expert opinions to in-depth analysis and reporting, the Project YouTube brings you the biggest stories from Australia and around the globe. Hit the subscribe button now for news delivered straight to your feed.